Hey y'all, and welcome to Geospatial Experiences. I'm your host, Melissa Mayo, and I'm an Esri engineer on the product team. This podcast focuses on the application of geographic information. Let's go on a journey together with some of my amazing coworkers, along with Esri customers, partners, and distributors who are doing really cool work in the field of GIS. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. We have Xander Bakker from Esri Colombia today on the podcast. Welcome, Xander.
Hey Melissa, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm so great. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Hope
Mm.
it will be a nice and interesting conversation for the audience.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be great. I've been super excited about this one. So we're going to jump in with you just like I have been with everybody else. And I want to hear about your geospatial experiences. Xander, tell me what you do for Esri Colombia and tell me about your journey.
So until yesterday, I was a solution engineer on the utilities team in Esri Colombia in Ecuador. But this morning they changed my title to solution consultant, which doesn't mean that I am going to do different things, but it just is the same thing. So that's me.
Well, tell me about your journey to GIS. You have a really incredible story. I want to know about your geospatial experience, if you will. I know your background and your education is in chemical engineering and in environmental technology, correct?
That is correct. So I started studying environmental technology, which is part of the chemical engineering in the Netherlands, mainly because of my interest of protecting the environment. And a couple of things happened during my study. So, and those things kind of demotivated me. And probably the main reason was that we were taught to be able to dump the maximum amount of toxic waste that was still within the parameters defined by the law. So I dropped out of my study and then I had to fulfill my military service. But since I had objections of my conscience, there was the possibility to do a low-level volunteer work for about a year and a half. And in order to decide what I was going to do, I had to go to The Hague um, and browse through a card index with all the different options that they offered. And while I was doing this, I came across an option which said data entry at the International Institute of Aerospace and Earth Sciences. Now, this sounded really, really cool. So remember, this was back in 1992, and the use of computers was not a common thing yet. So I started entering statistical data gathered in Indonesia in a database. And my supervisor, Bert, who is actually a crazy biologist, but also a wonderful person, would spend most of the time traveling for the project and accompanying MSc students who did their investigation as part of this UNESCO Man and Biosphere project. It was focused on reducing the impact to the primary forest on a volcano by the surrounding population, based on what kind of agriculture that they implemented. And when he was traveling, he would leave me tasks to carry out, which initially was this data entry. And I would normally finish these tasks earlier, and so I started to play around with the GIS software installed on the systems. And this kind of advanced to a point where he would focus on thematic aspects, saying, okay, you know more about GIS now than I do. So you take care of the of implementing the model to analyze this and creating this interactive spatial decision support system. And that's basically what we did, and that kind of kicked off my career in GIS. And just a friendly reminder for the audience, if you're not involved in GIS, be aware, because once you get involved in it, you get sucked into it and you might never be able to leave it. I'm happy about it, but it's something that happened. So after that 1 year and a half period, I was hired by the company to continue on another project in Kenya on the Amboseli Man and Biosphere Reserve.
So, what did you do for that one?
Well, that was actually another system that we implemented that would analyze the competition between wildlife and the cattle, the stock of the Maasai, taking into account the competition for biomass and rain season, dry season, migration patterns. It was a very interesting project also. And it also got me to go to Kenya. So that was a wonderful experience as well.
That's amazing, Xander. You've worked on such interesting, neat things. You've had amazing
Yeah,
opportunities.
GIS has brought me to places that I never imagined me doing before. So that has been a wonderful experience, really.
I can absolutely back you up too on your comment about GIS. Like once you get sucked in, you can't leave. It's like potato chips. You can't stop once you get started, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So didn't you have a trip through Latin America that you had planned and you started it and that's kind of how you found your way to Colombia? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So
Tell us about it.
during my sure. So during my time at the IDC, I made friends with a group of students, mainly from South America. And by the end of 1994, I had about 10 weeks of vacation time accumulated, which I was going to spend traveling to Colombia. And after Colombia, I would continue to Peru, visit the Machu Picchu, which obviously everybody has to do, travel overland to Santiago de Chile to meet with some other friends, and after that, going to Argentina, including the most southern part of the continent where I had another friend who was living there. However, things did not really go as planned, despite the fact that they warned me about Colombia. So let me explain this a little bit more, because at the IDC, in the office next door, there were two PhD students working on a project in Colombia, and they warned me about Colombia. Not things like violence or drugs that you tend to hear. It was something else. Women. Very,
Women. That's
very
awesome.
dangerous.
Very
So
dangerous.
2 days after I set foot in Colombia, I met the woman who now I've been married to for almost 29 years. And I can say that love at first sight really exists. And this, as you can imagine, really changed my travel plans. So I did travel to Peru. I tried to change the rest of the flights to get back to Colombia, which didn't work. So I lost my flights. I spent the last money that I had on a ticket traveling back to Colombia. And in Colombia, there I was, no money, and my flight back to to um, to the Netherlands out of Argentina. So with the help of some friends, the friend that I had in Colombia, the one who's responsible for meeting my wife, she got me into contact with the local distributor of the GIS software developed at the ITC. And I did a small project for the Minister of Agriculture, which helped me to buy a ticket back home. But at that time, I was already engaged to be married. Things went really fast, and that changed obviously things a little bit more, because I was supposed to go back to the Netherlands and participate in an exchange program with of young scientists with the University of Milan and in Italy. But when I got back to the Netherlands, this contact person was on some field trip in some desert where there was no way to contact him. And a couple of days later, I received by fax an offer from the company that I worked for in Colombia for this short project to get back to Colombia. So that's what I did. I packed my suitcase and went back to Colombia, where I worked for a couple of years, about 6.5 years until 2001.
Xander, I love that story so much. I just can't even tell you. I think that's just incredible. It's just so fun, and it's amazing how just things fall into place, and you just kind of have to go with it, right?
Yeah, it really does. So it has been an amazing thing to do. But yeah, really being involved in GIS. Well, we can say it has defined my career. It got me to get to know my wife that I'm married to, and it has defined a large part of my life. And I'm actually happy that it did.
That's good. I love that so much. So, okay, I want to circle back to your work. I was really intrigued with your work at and let me make sure I get this right, the International Institute for Aerospace Survey and Earth Sciences, right? Did I land it?
That is correct.
Okay, so you worked on such interesting projects, like just really interesting projects while we were there, while you were there. Did you have a favorite project? Was there something
Yeah.
that
So
really just really, resonated for you?
okay. So let me try to make this a little bit more visual. I know it's a podcast.
Mhm.
I'm not going to share any visuals here, but let me try to explain what this experience was. So the first project was interesting, but the second one really was probably the most interesting project that I worked on. So the second one was where we had to go to dive into this competition between wildlife and stock on the Amboseli National Park, part of the Man Biosphere Project for UNESCO.
Mhm.
And so try and picture this. At some point in time, I was in Kenya. We went to the national park where we carried out this investigation, and we created this interactive decision support system for the local Maasai. And actually, we went on a field trip to get to know the park, and we were accompanied by the Minister of Environment, by representation of the Maasai, and also the most renowned scientist that had been studying for 20 or 30 years elephant behavior in the park. So that park is restricted, you can't go off road. So what you normally see is that you have these cars or small vans with tourists, and they have this window in the roof where about 8 people try to squeeze themselves in a square meter. So it's a small place, and then probably you can only just reach out your hand with your camera and try to aim it at something that you can't see to get back pictures. And there we were going off road, approaching this group of elephants, get out of our cars. And there was this scientist that had a box with files of the elephants, identifying them with the scars that they have in their ears, and telling stories about what they did and how they were identified, and the things that they have lived to see in all these years of investigation. That was an experience that I will never forget. So that was probably the best experience that I had, in the most challenging and interesting project with the social aspects of the Maasai, and the competition with migration routes, which were really interesting.
That sounds like an amazing project for sure, Xander.
It it
I know I
was.
would have loved to have been right in the middle of it too. You
It
just really
was.
you really seem to have a deep-seated sense of integrity and commitment to doing the right thing. You've talked a lot about how interested you are as far as, environmental concerns go and working with the Maasai and doing all of that, work in Kenya. How has that really, shaped your path, that drive and that commitment and that focus on, this is what I feel like is the right thing here.
Well, thanks for asking that. I'm not sure if it's really the case. So, but I do truly believe that if we treat each other with the right amount of respect, we can help make a better world. Being interested in the environment has helped me stop with the study that didn't have this focus that I was interested in, and it provided this opportunity, which I didn't expect it to go in this direction of GIS. And although I did not end up working and mainly in environment, it is something that is well nested into what you do every day. So every day we try to make some sort of contribution to this world. But and one of the things that you have to bear in mind. So don't get me wrong, I'm human, I make mistakes and a lot of them, obviously. But fortunately, my wonderful wife and my beautiful daughters are my moral compass. So they do all the heavy lifting now. So that's a wonderful thing that you try as a family to do the right thing and small things that will help contribute also to making a better world. And on the other hand, I think here using GIS as a tool will allow us to make a difference, right? We can help individuals and organizations to make a change, and every small step counts.
I love that so much. I love hearing about your family too. Maybe I'll get to meet them one day, Xander. I think that's amazing.
Sure.
We'll bring them on. We'll let them talk about dad.
Will do.
Absolutely. All right. So you said that they just changed your title to solutions consultant, correct?
Right.
Okay, good. I'm trying to stay on track. So you're a solutions consultant for Esri Colombia now. So what really does your job entail?
So well, actually, it doesn't really matter what kind of role you have within the organization. We all are focused on making our customers successful, right? That's our main focus. So, as a solution engineer or consultant, we work with utilities companies in this case. So we have electric, gas, water, telco, and we also do solid waste disposal companies. So this image of selling software is something that we've changed long in the past, right? Our goal now is not to have a customer that has as many Arc-Info boxes on their shelves as possible. That's not what we do. So our main focus is to understand the business needs of the different types of companies that we work with, and that we try to help design solutions and those, for instance, initial operating capabilities for the smaller companies. And for the larger companies, we might help them with innovative projects and how to get more of their investments in GIS that they're making. So every day it's different. And although there will be things which can be applied to many companies, each and every company is unique. And I also believe that we serve as a bridge between Esri, who's creating those best practices, and this wonderful software that we use day to day, based on years of experience and all the feedback that they get from the business. We're making sure that our customers have access to them. And that's also a beautiful thing that I've seen in Esri, that each time, like you and like Remy, Esri is hiring more people from the companies, because it's this thematic knowledge that you need to understand what really fits to the different customers. So that's a wonderful thing that I've seen in Esri, and also that Esri is so open in sharing these experiences and work together with this one Esri concept is a wonderful thing. So it's only getting better, I'm sure.
So Xander, can you talk to me a little bit about what it's like working for an Esri distributor? Can you explain kind of how that works and how that's different? Remy and I, we work for Esri out of Redland. So tell us a little bit about how working for distributors is it the same, different, let fill us in.
Sure. So Esri Colombia, as many distributors, you'll find distributors in each and every country, right? Maybe not in all countries, but most countries worldwide, you'll find them, and they serve as a bridge to the customers that we have locally, providing them also with the service in the local language and with local knowledge of what's important for those companies. So Esri Colombia is also the owner of Esri Ecuador and Esri Panama. Panama serves as like a little bit more independent, and we tend to work a bit more together with an Esri Ecuador. So Esri Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama is a large distributor. We have more than 400 highly skilled people working day to day on our customer success with professional services, training and adoption. We have international support in Colombia, and of course we have sales where I am. We try to mirror how Esri in the United States is organized. So we also work with sectors. We have utilities where I'm in. We have an area that works with clients in the infrastructure management part, which is more roads, highways, railway, and stuff like this. We have natural resources, defense, local, national government, you name it. It's the same thing that you have in the United States, because we believe that this thematic knowledge to understand what's important for clients in a specific sector is so important to be able to work with them, to understand them, and to advise them on the proper solutions that they can benefit. As part of this, also we are being helped by, for instance, your office that you have in, well, it's called the office, the Latam office in Miami, but it's actually the people that we are closer related to are in Atlanta. So we work together with Caio Victor and Giovanni Solero, and they are like a bridge for us to provide us with those best practices, to help them also with events. So we have an event coming up on March 16, and they'll be traveling to help us out with content and other things. So that's a great thing. It's really like a collaboration. With Esri and trying to represent and replicate the same things that you already have figured out in the United States. And if I circle back about what is it like to be living in Colombia and working for the Colombian distributor, Colombia really is a wonderful country. The nature is unparalleled, and you have warm and kind people. And I'm fortunate to live in Medellin, which is called the city of eternal spring. So we have temperatures on average year-round of about 27 degrees Celsius, which translates roughly to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And you hear a lot of things about public safety, right? That it's dangerous. And actually they have a saying here, and it says that the only danger is that you might want to stay. And I couldn't agree more, because that happened to me.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Sign me up for that kind of weather and that kind of those kind of views and that kind of nature, Xander. Sign me up. I can see why you wouldn't want to leave.
It's wonderful, really. The
Hopefully I'll
hikes
have an
that you can
opportunity.
make here, it's really great.
Yeah, hopefully sometime I'll have an opportunity and we'll have to get together and chat in person.
Will do, will do.
So I'm curious about your customers that you work with there in Colombia and the surrounding areas. So what are they interested in when they reach out to you? You know, what are some of their pain points? What are they needing to touch base with Xander about?
Yeah, good question. So there's a wide range of different challenges our customers face, right? They could be really small. Like, I have a problem with a survey that I designed. Can you help me out? But we also get like requests for bigger things, like defending the interest of a client when they're doing complex network management modernization projects, by making sure that the solution that is going to be implemented is aligned with best practices. So it's really varied. And if I get back to an answer that I mentioned earlier, there's no day which is the same. Every day is different. And that makes it interesting.
Oh, I'm sure it does. I'm sure you have just such a varied group of customers that you work with, and they probably bring just very different, I don't want to say problems, but issues, just things that they need you to help, help them kind of work through. So I
Challenges,
would keep
right?
challenges, that's a good word for it. Yes, challenges. That would have to keep it interesting. It does for us too when we're
Mhm.
working with different customers all over the place. So I want to ask too, and this is something I just thought about, Xander. So what makes your customers so passionate about GIS? Columbia seems to be kind of leading the way in applying innovative GIS solutions. So what makes them so passionate about the technology and the science and the practice of GIS?
Good question. So In Colombia, if we look at Esri Colombia, they have been around, well, not with the name Esri Colombia, because that's something from the past, like almost 10 years, but they've been around for more than 25 years. So there's a long trajectory to work together with clients and providing them with solutions throughout the time. And yeah, we feel that we're trying to do a very good job at what we're doing. So, and you can see that in the moment that we organize events. We've had like a user conference in Colombia, which draws more than 2,000 people, which is a substantial amount of people to get at an event. Obviously, the number of people that we get at our utilities conference is a lot less. It's around 200, but having 200 people, um, enabling them so the peers can get together and interchange ideas is really great. So we're trying to build a community, so that each customer can also learn from the experiences of others. So they also interchange ideas. And we also have at our conferences clients to expose what they have done, to put them on stage in the spotlight, and giving them the credit of those beautiful things that they do. So it's really something that we really get very motivated and inspired by the things that our customers do.
Definitely see that. How do you go about helping your customers, and what are you really passionate about helping them to do? Is there something in particular that you really like working with them on, or is there something that really kind of drives you when it comes to helping them?
Well, obviously, there's always this personal touch, and
Mhm.
what you'll see is that there are cultural differences when you travel around. And I've seen them going to Indonesia and Africa. I've been working in different countries in Europe, in the States, different countries of Latin America. And if you are in Europe or you are in the States, normally when you start a meeting, you go directly to the point, right? It's efficiency, it's time, it's money, it's really to the point. And in Colombia, you can't really start a meeting without doing some sort of social interaction, um, because that's what people like, and that's also something that provides you to get on this personal level with our client, which at some point stop being clients, they're being friends, and you're trying to help each other out and work together on achieving those goals that you set. So that's a great thing. But if I look at how things have evolved in time, I remember that at first the focus was mainly on digital transformation. We had so many companies that were doing work on paper and trying to help to implement those applications and those workflows that help them migrate paper into to digital process. That's something from the past, although it still applies to some of the smaller companies that are still starting off. um, with all this advancement in GIS and all these new things, big data analytics, use of drones and other imagery, geo AI to inspect assets, augmented, virtual, mixed reality, digital twins, and advanced network management, there's so much going on, so many possibilities. So what we do is something that has a lot of different aspects. It's not just okay. Let's help this client to implement survey. Maybe we attach a dashboard to it to create this situational awareness. No, it's spreading also with the implementation of what GIS to other corners of the company where conventionally GIS was not used. So it also aids in using GIS for things that we had never imagined. And that's the beautiful things. You have to talk to the client, get on a personal level, trying to become this trusted advisor, and trying to visit those areas that have come from a non-experienced GIS part. to try and understand what is it that they're trying to achieve, and how can we implement or use or benefit from this RGS implementation that the company already has to provide additional value to those areas. So it's a beautiful thing. There's a lot going on there.
It to me, what it sounds like you're saying is it's really all about the people, Xander.
It is. It is.
I love that too. That's always a big focus for me is really being able to help help other people and help them, get past their challenges so that they can do what they need to do and be able to move on and do the next amazing thing that they're going to do. Because our customers do some incredibly amazing work, don't they?
Absolutely. So when you talk about people, obviously, we, in the context of, for instance, providing a geospatial strategy, we talk about technology and processes and people. And obviously, okay, we got you covered, but it's more important to focus on the processes, because the thing that makes it really useful is when you manage to transform a process into a more efficient way of working. And this agility is something that obviously uses technology, but you also always have to take into account the user that will use this process, the user that will benefit from this process. So you have to talk with this person. So if you think about like new technology and its digital transformation, for some of the older people on the workforce, it might be a larger step to do. If somebody is close to getting its pension, it might not be very motivated to learn new things that he has no feeling for. And if a young person enters the company, then those will be very, very motivated of using the latest technology and use it. But all this knowledge that the older person has in his head, it's so important that it gets stored into this central repository, and it is available for every person. Because if this person for some reason would not be able to work anymore for the company, there's so much knowledge that could get lost. So yeah.
That reminds me of a project I worked on when I was, very early in my career. We were capturing waterline mapping, and because the people that worked on the system, they were getting on up there, but they had the system memorized. They had it all up here, and we said, well, what if they retire? Anybody could get hit by a bus any day. All of this information is stuck in these super knowledgeable employees' heads. We need to get it out here in the GIS system so that you have that and can build on it. But yeah,
Absolutely.
like you said, that just reminded me of you know going back going back in my career too. And it's still a concern though. It's still something that we have people out there who they're the sole, or maybe there's a few of them, they're the ones that know the system, whatever it is that they work on, and they know it intimately well, but they don't have it, captured in another record, and they're having to kind of make that shift and do that. And so it's our jobs to help them get through that, isn't it?
Then that's absolutely correct. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's so important, and we're not trying to replace those people. We
No.
really try to leverage all the knowledge that they have, so it's available for the greater good, right? For the business.
Yeah, we had some people at when I worked for the power company that they retired, and then they came back and they had so much knowledge. I mean, you could go and ask them about any certain line, any particular thing, and they knew everything about that line because they were there when it was built back in the day, and they knew it, and they had all of this incredible industry knowledge. So, like you said, we're not trying to replace them. We just need what's in their brains out for us to
Mhm.
see. You know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about challenges and communicating. Are there challenges communicating complexities of GIS technology and new things as they're coming out? Do you have anything along those lines that you have to deal with in South America?
So you always have to bear in mind the maturity of the company in
Mhm.
using the GIS and their implementation. Um, I remember sometime in the past, I had a meeting with one of the larger utility companies here in Colombia. And they were eager to explore this way of predictive um, predictive analysis, right? So we had this great forest-based classification and regression that we can use, connecting to like the history of all the inspection and maintenance carried out on assets that could help predict which ones are more prone to failure. And when we tried to carry out a pilot, one of the first things that we noticed is that the amount of information that was available was not enough. And that's what you see in many occasions. So they had 4 years of history in one system using one structure, focused on getting a specific set of characteristics of the inspection or maintenance carried out on the asset. And before that, they had a different system with a whole different set of other characteristics that they used. And before that, it was all on paper. So although it wasn't possible to use the data to create a reliable model and predict this possibility of failure on assets and define a preventive maintenance program out of it, it was an opportunity to get into this conversation with the client to get the focus on, okay, let's revise the way you are recording the information in the field. If this is what you want to do later on, then this is the moment that you have to have those mechanisms in place to be able to get the information that you will need later on to carry out this predictive analysis. So it's very interesting to have these type of conversations. And although there might be new technologies, we'll also see this variation in maturity. Smaller companies will have well very little technology in place. Might be just a single person carrying out all the work, so it might be a heavy load if they start to trying to catch up with all the latest innovations. And you have other companies that might have their own areas for artificial intelligence, or other areas that fly drones, or other areas that are focused on data science. But getting to talk to them and being able to get this spatial focus to aid them in what they're already doing is something that is a rich experience, really. And that's what we're trying to do.
Sounds like never a dull day.
Absolutely.
Oh, and here's something else I just thought about too, Xander. Do you find that by working with all the customers and they have all these different interests and areas of the business that they're working in, does that challenge you to have to learn more about different, parts of the business or maybe different, things like drones or imagery collection or something that you may not, either have an established knowledge in or maybe not know as much in? Do you have to go and explore that on your own to be able to better help them?
Well, I know that we had a steep learning curve, for instance, to understand how a network works, right?
Mhm.
Because electric is different from gas, is different from water, is different from telco, and so on. And so that has been a challenge because originally what we used to learn was, okay, we learn the technology, but if we don't understand the processes that a company needs, then we still might be failing, or we might be, we don't have the knowledge really to help a client. And so there might be like some software which is not catching on that much in Colombia than probably in other regions, or if we compare to the States. An example could be like a business analyst. Business analyst is a great tool, which we're not using very much in our utilities. Well, for telco you could use it a lot, but we're not using it so much. And one of the reasons might be that the variety of enrichment data available in Colombia is a lot less than what you have in the States. So it also depends on, so the capabilities of this product is then a little limited based on the available information that you can get out of it. So that's one of the things and challenges that I have. But I had this interesting conversation with my colleague Hector the other day when we did some sort of meeting with some newer colleagues on our team. And I asked him the question, like, okay, what software in the ecosystem of all the applications that we have in ArcGIS do we not use for utilities? And we couldn't imagine one that actually isn't applicable, because there are so many aspects of what we see in our sector that makes it so complex and interesting at the same time. So it's
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I could babble on about this probably, but yeah, there are differences between like the US or the regions that we have here. If you have like Esri has a really interesting message about efficiency that it can be gained by, for instance, using mobile workers, right? So you get this named user and you provide with all the capabilities that this person could need for recording structurally everything he carries out in the field, which is amazing. But in Colombia, this cost of labor is a lot lower. So the benefit that you might obtain from using a certain amount of mobile workers might be something that's a little bit more difficult to sell. And sometimes you have people that have the perception that it might be costly. And that's normally based on the fact that there's underutilizing the capabilities that it's provided by the license that they have. So it's a conversation where you have to try and balance, like, okay, you have a budget and you have certain requirements, and sometimes it's a difficult decision. But on the other hand, you have to make them understand what the capabilities are that are provided and the benefits that you can gain from using them, which is all part of when you buy the software and implement it.
How do you bridge the gaps as the link between Esri and the customers of Esri Colombia? How do you kind of cover that?
So questions we can have like on many different levels. And in many cases, we're able to resolve them ourselves. But as I mentioned about the complexity that we face in our sector, many questions aren't that simple. And being able to work together with the LATAM office of Esri and also have direct connections with people is something that helps a lot, because and I think what has aided a lot has been going to conferences, not just because you gain a lot of experience out of the talks and presentations that are presented there, but also because you have the opportunity to talk to certain people and people that you may have been on a Teams call with or sent interchanged emails. But if they can put a face to the name, it's something that helps to build a relationship, and it's easier to contact them in case you have a very specific challenge that you need to be resolved. And since we are very occupied with working and helping our clients to implement things like utility network, that's a complex topic. And being able to directly go to some of the experts that you have on your team and trying to interchange ideas and getting help to resolve some specific issues is something that's so necessary and so important. So that's a wonderful thing.
We just talked to someone, another guest on the podcast. We were chatting about conferences, and they were talking also about how important conferences are for networking, as well as they really look at them more as as training, instead of a quote unquote conference, because not only do you have the training sessions, but you have the opportunity to talk to Esri people at the islands and really take, okay, this is my problem, this is what I'm stuck on, help me person at the right key at the right desk about that's focused on the right thing. So we talked a good bit about how useful that can be, and then the networking piece, being able to put a face with a name, being able to really figure out who are the people that I need to be connected with. It just that's just a recurring theme for me, because that was always important when I was sending people to conferences, is making sure that they were networking and making those connections and talking to the people that they needed to. So yeah, that's always been, I feel like that's just, when people talk about it as a conference, the conferences aren't really just conferences. There's so much more that goes into them, for sure.
That's absolutely right. Oh yeah.
Mhm. So I'm going to shift gears with you just a little bit. I want to move into talking about the Esri community. Used to be called Forum, now called Community. How important is it? I know we've talked about it a good bit, and it's something that we've had some conversations about. But how important is it to have an area such as the community available, to our users? Let's talk to us a little bit about how important it was for you when you were first learning and building your skills to have that space and be able to utilize it.
So it can play a huge role, right? But it all depends on how involved you're going to be. I remember, and I think this goes back like 20 years ago or so, that I started out on the Esri forums. And what I basically did was copying ArcObjects code from the great minds that shared their knowledge, trying to resolve like challenges that other users posted. And after doing this for quite some time, I came across questions that I considered that, hey, I could provide an answer for this. And once I started to do this, then, well, it's like GIS, you get hooked, really. It's something that it's difficult to stop with. And what I came to realize was that I was learning a lot more participating and providing answers than what I was just searching for content and specific things. And that's the beauty of it. So being able to help someone resolve a challenge is a great feeling, right? So if you're not doing it for someone else, do it for yourself. The feeling that you'll get is great. But so it's something that's really great to do, and there's a lot of information that you can get from it. But unfortunately, due to time restrictions and all this utility network stuff that I've been working on, I haven't been able to connect with the Esri community, for like the past year or two, and I truly miss it. But I can only recommend it to everyone to get involved, because people are really helpful. There is no stupid question. The only stupid question is the ones that you don't ask, right? So people are kind, they are understandable that people might be in different phases of their learning curve, and they're eager to help. So it's a great community, and it's a wonderful thing to get involved in.
Well, you said some really encouraging words about it. So my next question was going to be, how do we really encourage people to take advantage of and be active in the community space? You've had a very positive experience with it. It really seemed like it was integral to you when you were building up your skills. You utilized it quite a bit. Didn't you tell me you were one of the highest posters at one point in the forum space?
Well, I may have entered like a top 6 in the early versions of the SU form, and
Yeah.
afterwards I've had a couple of years on the road that I was the most contributing of S3 staff and contributors and distributors. But yeah, it's not about getting like this status, like the person that has helped most people. It's not a competition. Although for some people it is, because for users that get involved, they can. I remember from the past, they can win iPads and other things, which are really cool stuff to have. So it's not about trying to be the best at something, but the feeling that you get out of it, helping other people, is something that that's probably the best feeling that you can have. And as Esri, I think we have to keep promoting it, right?
Mhm.
And Esri is also getting involved every time more, and they're sharing valuable information on the Esri community, like best practices, or maybe it's the latest version of the UPDM model for gas, or roadmaps, webinars, knowledge articles, and so on. So there's a huge amount of information by users, for users, also by Esri staff, for users, that is available there.
Mhm.
And there might be some challenges to get involved, but since you can search for content in an anonymous way, you don't have to interact, but you can just get the information out of it. That's a great way to start. So yeah, it's a great resource to consult when you want to get faster to where you want to be. So that's really I recommend it highly to use it. Just also if you use Google and you search, the number of times that a solution on S3 community pops up is a lot. So it's a great resource. So please get involved.
It reminds me too, I had a conversation with another guest as well about teaching and how really, when you're teaching a topic and you're teaching a subject, it forces you to really learn it inside out, backwards, forwards, because if you can't, if you don't know it that well, then it's going to be difficult to teach it. And the Esri Forum the community space feels like sort of an extension of that idea that, if you learn it really well, then you can help somebody else and you can, convey the information that here. And so it seems like a really good catalyst for people to dig in and learn something at a deeper level too, to be able to expand their own understanding, but also be able to share that and help others along too.
It is. It is really. It's a great resource, and what you mentioned is absolutely true. If you're able to explain something to another one, it means that you went further than just understanding it, because then you really are able to manage the topic, and if you're able to explain it to someone else that in such a way that he or she understands it. So that's yeah. And if you look at the resources available in Esri, not just the help, but also the trainings, the MOOCs, and all the resources that you have in blog posts, it can be overwhelming, right? It's hardly possible to be aware of everything that Esri is releasing, but because it's such a huge amount of knowledge that's being shared, um, try and use the Esri forums. Ask your questions if you aren't able to resolve something, or reach out to your account manager or your trusted advisor, the solution engineer that might be able to help you out. It's a community. We're there to help, and that's the most important thing.
I know I've heard some people say that it takes a lot of time to post, answer post, all of that in the community space. What would you say to that? Do you
So it
feel like it's worth it?
Oh yeah, well, I know that it has been worth my while
Mhm.
because I've also posted some blog posts, and if you look at some of the times it has been visited, it's like tens of thousands of times, and then you really get the idea of okay, so maybe it's useful for some people, so it's nice, but it really depends on the complexity of the problem, for instance, that you want to solve. So what you have to remember is the first step is that you search for the content that you want to ask, because in many cases there's already a solution available and you don't need to ask it. You don't need to publish it. In case it's not, then be sure that you provide us sufficient relevant information for people to understand what you're trying to achieve, but don't go over to the other extreme side and publish a book, because there's not a lot of people that will be really eager to read large quantities of text. So it might take some time to figure out, but look at the examples of other users that have received useful answers. What is the information that they provided, right? There's so many examples there, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. People will be kind, they will help you, and if it's necessary to have follow-up questions because they don't understand, they will ask follow-up questions. So
I think that's great, Xander. Is our conversation about community, is it going to get you re-inspired to get back in there and be more active again?
oh, I know there are a lot of conversations ongoing, and I am. Well, when I was active, I used to be active primarily with arcade. Before that, more with Python code and stuff like this, or spatial analysis. And arcade is so easy and so powerful to use. So I'm sure that would get me interested. But it's not an aspect of interest. My interest has never ceased. Right? It's there still. The issue is time. The issue is time because
Yeah.
yeah, my agenda is crowded and with lots of things to do. But if I get back in the possibility to um, earn or to be able to get involved again, then I will certainly do it because it's a wonderful thing to do.
I think you should, Xander. I think people would love hearing and reading what you have to say. I'm enjoying it today, so I'm 100% certain that the community would like to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I have to see if I can make it work. But let's wait till after the event.
yes,
If I can make it happen.
maybe I need to get Pat Hole on here. He's all about the community. He posts about it a lot. So maybe I need to have him as a guest at some point and just talk about community and talk about all the things.
Yeah, you should.
Mhm. Okay, we're going to shift gears again a little bit, Xander, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So I want to
Fire away.
know what is the most interesting use of GIS that you've seen? And what's the most interesting thing that you've done yourself?
So, okay, that's a really tough question because, well, in this like 32 years of working with GIS, I've seen a lot, and with all the advancements of the technology, there's so many innovative uses. We'll see blockchain, Geo AI, just name it. There's so many interesting stuff. But I remember many years ago, I was teaching GIS here in Colombia, and I saw that they were using like GPS data and analytics of patterns to understand where people would walk and stop in, for instance, a bookstore or in a casino, and trying to organize the space accordingly so that people would really pass through as many parts as possible to increment revenue. So that was for me an eye opener. Like, okay, this is interesting. More recently, I've heard about people using like microscopic images and trying to detect diseases, aided also by artificial intelligence. So it's wonderful to see things also move towards that aspect of things. And for me, I think if I'm honest, what's most interesting is not what I do, but if you see the use cases of our users, right? The amazing things that they manage to do and manage to surprise us with things that we probably would have never imagined. You're using GIS to do what? Right?
Mhm.
It's a wonderful thing, and they are the ones that are making this change, that are creating the innovation, and we are just helping them with the technology. They're the ones that doing the most amazing things out there. So I think that's very inspiring, and the most beautiful things is really when users get to resolve and processes and doing very interesting analytics, detecting things that we wouldn't be able to do without this technology and the creativity of those minds.
Don't they do such amazing things? I mean, we can't, when we're developing, software, and by we, I don't mean me on that, but the smart people that we have that do the software development, they try to think about what are people using the software for, how are they going to utilize it, And the customers always surprise us. The users always surprise us with the things that they need to do, want to do, and the ways that they push the software in completely new directions. It's like you said, it's just inspiring to see the work that the customers do.
Right. And if you consider that those estimates of 80% of data being spatial data, right? Almost everything has a location. There's so many things that you can do with GIS. You just have to use your imagination.
That's what I was thinking. You're just really limited by your imagination and your own curiosity for what do you want to dig in and what problems do you want to solve. So
Yeah,
it's so cool. It's such a really cool space to be able to work in and earn a living in. Honestly, sometimes you sit around, you're like, is this how I earn a paycheck doing cool stuff with GIS? This is amazing.
absolutely.
For sure. So why do you think it's so important to look at how GIS is used in other areas beyond, the field or the area that we currently work in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does
Okay.
because although problems might be specific to an area, and the solution that is being defined might be applicable to other fields, right? That's the base, that's the basis of it. So a word comes to mind like cross pollination,
Mhm.
where you actually can be helped by actions of others. Like somebody does something somewhere that affects you in a positive way that you can use and leverage, right? So solutions that were primarily created for some sort of challenge to resolve it, being able to translate that and use the same sort of concept of the solution for a different problem is what makes it possible if you combine these different fields and multidisciplinary approach to solve problems.
I love that so much. It's so cool how, like you said, you can just kind of look at the way something was solved in one area and learn from that and take that and apply it to a new area. And GIS, I think, being so flexible and so just I don't want to keep saying the word applicable or applicable, but and that's the word that keeps coming, but it's so applicable to so many areas. I just want to stress to people that when you see that something's been solved or you've seen a solution in one field or one area, don't sit and go, well, that's just for that field or that's just for that area. Think about it from the perspective of how can I do something really similar, or how can I take that workflow and use it in my space?
Absolutely right. Yeah, so many things going on in fields which are probably not our own field, which are interesting and which at some point might be useful to other things that you encounter in your field. So it's yeah, you have to keep an open mind, not be focused just on a small topic that might be the main focus of your field or line of work, but being interested and being involved in different sectors and having these spaces where you can also interact with other areas and hear about what kind of problems they have been solving. We have these spaces also within Esri Colombia, where people present what kind of things they've worked on, and it's very interesting to just hear about those things. And many times, some aspect of it is applicable to what you are doing in your day-to-day work.
So, how do you think that applying the various geospatial approaches to solving problems, like we're talking about in different areas and different fields, is so beneficial? Why do you feel like it's a, what I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say here, but it's super beneficial. It's really the ultimate collaborative platform when you really get down to the basics of GIS. It's such a collaborative space. And what are those benefits that we've talked about some of them, but how is it really, when you really get down to it, so beneficial for people to be able to use this and collaborate and share ideas?
Okay, so In our utility sector, we obviously we work with a certain type of clients, and these clients have normally, if I try to simplify it, they might have the same type of problem. But since the introduction of WebGIS and being able to provide these capabilities to other areas, you also have to learn about other areas that are involved. From the past, there's always been a large involvement of people from the environmental areas of those utility companies that are involved, but they have a different focus, right? If you're planning a project, for instance, a transmission line, and you have to cut trees, then you have to compensate for those trees. We have to inspect, make an inventory of what kind of trees there are there any protected species, and a lot of things that you have to take into account. But on the other hand, you have this engineering aspect, and you also, which might say, okay, we don't want to have this line at too high elevations, because then there might be some effect on the on loss of the electricity that we're sending along the lines. And then you also have these social aspects that you have to take into account. Are there any indigenous populations that live around the area, or other aspects? And with the implementation of WebGIS, which spreads around the organization, there's a lot of uses that we weren't expecting, where they are using it. So now we have, for those projects, we have trucks that go into the woods for a project that cut the trees, but they want to be sure that the trees that are being cut and handed over to the truck are the same ones that get over to the final destination. And they are tracking it with ArcGIS. For other parts, they probably do inspections of houses so they can define prices, and they use survey to estimate what the price of a certain construction would be for some sort of project. And there's so many uses that we're seeing. It's really great. So if you try and start to combine all this knowledge into some space, and the initiative that you have with this geospatial approaches that you're trying to combine, I think it's a wonderful thing, because there's so much we can learn from other areas which have a different set of eyes that look at things in a different way, that helps us, because every individual can contribute something more, because together we know more, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole idea behind it, I suppose.
I think that's a great answer, Xander. You did amazing.
Thank you.
You have really good insight on and a lot of the things that I'm asking you about, and just the time you spent in the field. It's so neat to hear you chat about it and talk through it, and to get your thoughts on it. I don't know. I'm really enjoying our conversation. So.
So am I.
So tell me, what motivates and inspires you the most in your work? I know you've talked about some things that have been, inspiring a little bit here and there as we've gone through, but what really gets you going for what you do?
There are many things that get me going, but being able to collaborate with large, but also with small companies, get them started, the smaller ones, and for the larger to collaborate in solving real world problems. That is something I value a lot. And like I mentioned before, but what inspires me most is seeing those champions in those different companies working with RDS to create innovative solutions. That probably is the best part.
What do you do to help motivate others on your team?
So I don't think I do this consciously. And maybe it's not necessary, because our team is built out of people that are highly motivated, and they really really get involved with our customers, and they want to make them successful, right? So our customers are making considerable investments when implementing RGS, and we have to make sure that they achieve that business values that justifies the investment. Being able to collaborate with them and understand what motivates them is what motivates each and every member on our team. It's great to see what they're doing and the success that they manage to have.
Well, Xander, you may not realize it, but I can tell that you are absolutely a great influencer. You have a lot of passion and a lot of drive, and so there's no way that you're not at the very least influencing the people on your team. And I feel like you are probably motivating them as well, whether you realize it or not.
Well, we have to start keep seeding those seeds and hope that people will catch on. And you know, if people start to get involved, they love it normally, and they keep using it and they expand in it. So that's a wonderful thing.
For sure. You are so committed to your customers. You're so committed to, helping other people and helping others. You're setting a great example for, the people that are around you that you work with. You really are setting that as a standard for, how they see you working. So then they'll hopefully want to emulate that. They'll want to do the same thing because I know that you have a really good rapport with the people that you work with and the people that you help. I've heard amazing things about you before I even got to know you. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're definitely having an impact for sure. So what do you have do you have any final thoughts before we leave today? I think I have exhausted my question list and the extra ones that I've thought of as we go. So what final thoughts do you have, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about that I didn't put you in the hot seat about today?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that combining various geospatial approaches involving different disciplines is a great initiative, right? So what you guys are trying to do is wonderful, and it will help to get a better understanding of the challenges that we face, and it will be a foundation of providing those innovative solutions that we need. So that is a great thing. And we thrive and depend on our customers, right? They are successful. And we've had situations in the past that the client might think that RGS is expensive, but normally relates, as I mentioned before, to underutilizing the capabilities of RGS, which hasn't allowed them to get that business value from their investment. And that's where we try to get in and work together with this client, probably define something like a geospatial strategy that will help them to achieve those business goals. And I think as a geospatial community, we have the possibility to make a huge change possible, right? So let's make it happen.
For sure. You said something during the podcast that really struck home for me. So and it was the line when you said once you discover GIS, you can never really leave. And I can really see what you mean by that. I think there are probably a lot of others out there that feel, the exact same way that you do and that I do, that we do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had offers to do other kinds of jobs throughout the years, and each time when I consider, hey, but that wouldn't be like doing something with GIS, and it's something that kind of resists me on changing it. It's GIS that I love, GIS that I want to do, and I hope to be able to do it for many years to come.
I hope so too, Xander. I hope you keep doing it right where you are and that I have the opportunity to come and visit you there and meet
Sure.
some of the people that you work with and some of the people that you help for sure.
Well, you're welcome to visit me. You and Remy are always welcome here. So come and visit us.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to close out and wrap up. Thank you so much for doing this with us today. I know this is going to be, a really interesting episode for people and I can't wait for them to get to listen. So, thank you again.
Well, thanks for having me. So I hope that that really kicks off, and I'm looking forward also to listen to the other people that you're going to interview. So
Thank you so
thanks.
much. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'm going to leave us with Xander's line of once you discover GIS, you can never really leave. I think that's the best way to close this episode out. So thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. And we will be back soon with another episode and another great, interesting guest. If this episode isn't a journey, I don't know what is. Xander takes us from his life in the Netherlands as a college student to The Hague to South America, where he eventually meets his wife and settles in Colombia. Epic experiences, to say the least, and he found his way to GIS along that path. To paraphrase Xander, once you find GIS, you can never leave it. Xander is so genuine about his love for GIS, his appreciation for the opportunities he's had in the field, and the people he gets to work with every day. He truly loves his job. He finds inspiration in his family and in doing the best he can to help as many people as he possibly can. I think Xander's an inspiration, and he is much more influential than he gives himself credit for. I very much enjoyed getting to know Xander as we work through this podcast conversation. I hope you find our discussion helpful and insightful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and come back for more geospatial experiences. That wraps up today's episode. Please feel free to reach out with your comments, or if you have an interesting topic that you would like to hear, please let us know. Thanks again for your time, and tune in for our next podcast.